We've got another great story to share with you today, an inspiring journey into local government leadership, because that's what we do here on the HaltingWinter podcast. We tell the stories behind the titles, the unique paths into public service, and the moments that shape how these leaders show up, even when the work gets heavy. Every day, local government quietly makes modern life possible, and behind every service is a person doing work that often goes unseen. This is the HaltingWinter podcast, and I'm Seth Winterhalter. Every week, I have the pleasure of sitting down with local government leaders from across the country that remind us where government really lives, locally, doing the work that truly matters. This is the work that builds belonging. Before we hear today's conversation, I want to take a moment to thank our sponsors. Tyler Technologies has been exclusively serving the public sector since 1998, partnering with cities and counties to make their work more manageable, more connected, and more effective. From smarter budgeting to artificial intelligence, Tyler equips local governments with software and solutions that help leaders serve with clarity, efficiency, and impact. You can explore a variety of free resources at tylertech.com/winter. That's tylertech.com/winter. And if today's conversation resonates with you, I want to invite you to check out the Municipal Leadership Development Circle. It's a global community of local government leaders who are committed to growing together, supporting one another, and leading well in the middle of municipal pressure. You can learn more about the MLDC at haltingwinter.com/MLDC. That's haltingwinter.com/MLDC. And now, let's turn to today's conversation. My guest on the podcast today is Kathy Hodgson, the longest tenured city manager in the state of Colorado and in the city of Lakewood, where you currently serve until this summer as you've announced your retirement. You must have started when you were like 12 years old. This is amazing. Kathy, welcome to the podcast. It is such a pleasure to have you on today.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to meet you as well.
Oh, we are going to have an amazing journey today through an impactful and inspiring career filled with awards, all kinds of work that you've done in one place. It's unique to have someone who served in one city, and I love highlighting these unique stories. And so I can't wait to hear about Lakewood and what's changed over the course of your tenure. But before we get to Lakewood and your amazing career, take us back to the beginning. Tell us about where you were born and kind of the childhood that shaped you and started you on this journey.
Yeah, thank you, Seth. I really appreciate that question because I think our early childhood really does shape who we are today. And I say that because I was born in California, and I am the middle child of 5. And my grandfather, so my dad's dad, was Assyrian, and he spoke Persian. And my parents had 4 daughters and 1 son. So in that culture, women were more oppressed. It's more an oppressive culture for women. And so the career I chose wasn't exactly my parents' expectations for me. In fact, they told me not to go for the city manager job. So I'm the middle child. All 5 of us came in 9 years, and the first 3 girls were my sister, and me in 3 years straight. So my dad, and we all looked alike. So my dad just called me number 3. He just called me number 3. And that has imprinted on me. Yeah. And then after me, the skies opened up and the angels gave my parents a son. And so that I was glad for that. And then after that came, so we're all dark haired, dark eyes. And then after my brother came this little blonde haired, green eyed little girl. I guess they ran out of pigment or something. And she, of course, was born on Valentine's Day. So she was the little favorite and has been all the way to now. And I really think birth order does make a difference, as it really does. Fairness is one of my core values because both my mom didn't work until I was 12. And so we had to make do. My dad worked for the federal government and we just had to make do. So sharing was really important. We all had one bathtub and they just put one in the bathtub in the same water, right? And we just had to share things. And we got to go to McDonald's about once every 2 months, and we'd share one order of fries. So we even measured them. So equity and fairness is really, really important to me because I often felt lost in all these kids, especially being called number three. And that really, really plays out in my role as a city manager. That's a really important value to me, that our employees, no matter what they do, how much they make, any of that, that they all get treated with the same amount of fairness.
That is so incredible. Again, I so appreciate you sharing this, just the peek into the childhood that shapes you, right? And the things that matter to us. And like you said, you had multiple aspects. And I think it could be good for a young person listening to this, because sometimes we can kind of look back and maybe see things, but we don't really dive into how we're shaped and formulated, maybe in some of the challenging things. And like you said, not only are you a middle child in five, there's a lot of, like you said, number three, like where's identity, but you're also, it's the middle, it's the reality of having immigrant grandparents. It's all these things there that are shaping and molding. And I always say at the heart of every human is the longing for worth and identity. Who are we? What's our purpose? Why are we here? And it's those early, as you're sharing, even though I was the oldest child in my family, there are things there that I resonated with, like, just like, you're figuring yourself out, especially in parents, raised in boomer parents that were pretty busy doing their thing. It can kind of feel like, man. And then, like you said, and we'll dive into this maybe next. I want to ask first, you said your dad worked for the federal government, so you have some kind of an awareness of government on a perspective. How did that and did his role shape your interest in politics, or did you have any real awareness of what government was?
I think, what a good question. I like you so much already. So after high school, I went to be a lifeguard, and soon after that, let's see, I was probably early 20s. I realized I didn't get a lot of time with my dad because he was always working and hanging out with my brother, to be honest with you. So for about 30 years, every Saturday, my dad and I set it up where we met and worked out together every Saturday morning. So he lived in a neighboring suburb, and we would drive to the rec center together, wait for each other in the car every Saturday, and then go into the gym. I worked out. I think he sat around and talked to the old people or whatever he did. And then we'd walk back to his car, and we'd always go to this one 7-Eleven and get a cup of coffee and go for a drive. So I think what I'm saying is, his experience in federal government, he's definitely my mentor. I adore that man, who is 96 now. I just adore him. And he was my mentor, and we talked. And so he framed his stories around his experience in the federal government. So I wonder if indirectly that really attracted me to establish a career in local government. I wonder. I never really looked at it that way. But he definitely is a really big influence on my life. My mom was really worried. She's with my dad right now, and she always worried about my sisters and brother and didn't worry a whole lot about me. I was kind of that tough girl. So I guess I really needed my dad and established this pattern of working out with him. I want to say one more thing. So it's a real disruption in your Saturday to go and leave the house, right? We have two little girls, but my husband loved it because it taught our girls that it's important to have a relationship with your dad even after you're grown. That's a really important thing. So my husband really loved that modeling, and my mom loved it because it got dad out of the house. And it got him in the gym, whatever he was doing in the gym. So it kind of was a win-win, and it was worth it for me to have that time without all my siblings around. That time for me to get to know my dad as an adult. So that just is a precious thing to me. And then when COVID came, it got really difficult. And then after COVID, he all of a sudden became old, and it just changed. So, yeah.
It's so interesting to see the dynamics and experience the dynamics of age, right? When we're young, it's just such a unique environment to be a child and to have parents who are, we don't really understand the weight they carry, the responsibilities, and today it's even, we, young people can look and go, oh, my parent, I hear a lot of, oh, it's everything's to blame on my parents. And there are no parent is perfect. And there's some people who come out of really hard realities of childhood. But I don't know an adult who has some self-awareness and some situational awareness who at least has a different appreciation as they become an adult, as they have kids, as they have the responsibilities to kind of go, oh, maybe I get it. And like you say, the restoring of relationship, even if it's possible, to connect and to have you have a different relationship with your parent when you become an adult, when you become a worker and a leader.
And what's so important is forgiveness. We're all just a bunch of humans, right? And I look back at how they favored my brother and favored my little sister, and wow, that just doesn't matter anymore. And to talk about those things is only brings about pain. And so I think forgiveness of each other's foibles is just really powerful.
Well, as a leader, I'm sure the two things that you've said, fairness and forgiveness, play a huge impact in why you've been so successful to be able to, because it does take, it's easy for leaders to get self-focused or to only gather themselves around people, who matter or who, fit the right mold or whatever, but to have a fairness and to have forgiveness, to be able to allow people. I talk a lot about culture and how if you don't have a culture that allows people to fail and to learn and to grow, you'll never have a really healthy culture. And forgiveness, I think, plays a lot in that, in how we allow people to feel safe about really owning their mistakes and owning the things they need to grow in.
Yeah. When I did my master's degree, I did the thesis or the capstone project on women in leadership. And, women, and I hate to stereotype, but women tend to keep score more than our male gender. And wow, I think that's so damaging to kind of keep a track record of, well, I remember when, right? And so therefore I'm going to treat you a certain way, right? And I just think that's unhealthy, and it doesn't get you anywhere. You just get stuck in this kind of toxic mindset. So yeah.
I absolutely, I agree there. And I think there is, this is where, especially, and we'll talk about your story again, when you came into city management and even local government decades ago, it was a radically different environment than it is today. Thank goodness there are more female leaders. There are more opportunities for women to get leadership training. In fact, one of the podcasts, it'll have aired, I think it airs before we have yours, with Julie Underwood. She's a public works director, deputy city manager. She's been a city manager in Washington, and she leads the Northwest Women's Academy. It was her kind of brainchild, her and another person in Oregon. And it's done so much to not only give women leadership opportunities in local government in the state of Washington, but also just to give them community. And I think that's the issue, though. If we're keeping score, how many times have people that have faced adversity, then they're almost holding each other back instead of lifting each other up. And
so true. Yeah.
So we'll talk about that in your story. I want to go back. Let's go back to the lifeguard. How in the world how did you become a lifeguard? And as you become a lifeguard, I'm sure this is like a city pool. This is a part of the city of Lakewood. So tell us how this came on your radar.
My mom, because she had 5 kids, and now that I look back, she just needed to give us something to do every day in the summer. So, and my mom's an avid swimmer. She swam a mile every day. So she just packed the kids up and brought us to the pool. And we had to go through all the different swim lessons so that we're all competent in the water. And that's just how I spent every summer. My mom she grew up in Michigan. And so for a month of summer, we would go and do, when I was a little kid, and water ski and swim in the lake. And that's just a part of me. So I thought, yeah, I'll go lifeguard. And when I was looking for a summer job, because that's just a natural setting for me. And there's nothing like walking into an outdoor pool on a crisp, bright morning and just the smells and then just knowing pretty soon you're going to hear a bunch of little kids laughing and screaming and splashing each other. And you're going to smell the smell of suntan lotion, which is really bad for you. But just all that wonderful, those wonderful sensory things identified with outdoor swimming pool. I just loved it. I just thought it was cool.
It's so interesting you bring that up. I was listening to someone the other day on I think it was some social media thing about fragrance and about summer colognes, and they were one's called like summer swim or something, and they said it smells like the tanning lotion or the sunburn lotion, sunblock, and like chlorine, and it's got like it just reminds you of walking into that summer pool experience. Like you said, there's so many memories of that.
And that smell of cut grass, right? As you walk in, I just love all that. So
is your how old were you when you started to work as a lifeguard?
I was a teenager.
Yeah. So you're still in high school probably.
Yeah. And then all through college, every summer through college. Yeah.
Wow. And did you know that you were working for the city, or did you just think it's just the pool and whoever owns the pool?
And I don't think I knew I was working for the city. I don't think that mattered to me.
Yeah. Yeah.
I guess on my paycheck, by the way, I think I made $1.80 an hour, I think, or $1.82. But anyway, on those little teeny paychecks, I think it was a City of Lakewood paycheck. So that mattered. But besides that, I didn't understand city government at all.
Yeah. I bring that up because that is for the handful of people who had those kind of jobs. I just had Chase Bruton on. He was an umpire, and I had on, I'm trying to think, I think it was Abby maybe. She worked in for the parks or the the concession stands, for the baseball games. And it's always these summer, and they had no idea. In fact, when they wanted to raise or something, they're like, their boss is like, oh yeah, I got to talk to the city. And they're like, the city? What's the city have to do with anything? It's interesting. And so, okay, so you're working your summer doing the lifeguard for the city. And what did you go to undergrad for? What were you thinking? What did you study there? And what were you thinking the path was going to be for Kathy?
Yeah. So thank you. So my undergrad is in psychology, and I think I have a minor in journalism. And my intent was to go to seminary after psychology, and thinking I would work in some kind of Christian setting and do Christian counseling. That's really what I thought I was going to do. And then toward the end of my college years, I went and visited a school, a seminary, and decided quickly that it just didn't fit for me, to my mother's dismay. But I was also in ROTC, which she didn't like either. But so I just decided that wasn't something that fit me. I wasn't interested in that evangelical stuff. That just wasn't my thing. And I appreciate people who it is their thing. It's just not mine. So I kind of aborted that and just kept working for the city. Soon after I graduated, then Lakewood's a special place, and they offered me a full-time job running the indoor pool while I was looking for a real job, and I just didn't know what I wanted to do. So I was managing a pool, and one of the supervisors knew I was interested in counseling. So she set up some experiences for me. We actually had a division of human services that actually did counseling. And she figured out a way for me to, after my shift at the pool, I could go and I ran, I had no business doing this, but I did it. I ran a parenting class and a kind of a girls team who are girls in trouble. I think it was a nicer name than that. But I ran 2 classes, and it was so interesting for me to have that experience. And once again, I realized, oh, wow, this isn't for me. There was some real conflict and some heartache and pain that these people were going through. And I just thought, I'm a pretty empathetic person. And I thought, I won't be able to sleep at night. I'll be really absorbing their issues. And I contrasted that with the fact that um, the the rec center asked me to start opening at 5 a.m. At the front desk, and I was like, sure, I'll try that. So I'd open the rec center, and people who were using the rec center would come in and with just a brightness, and people who wanted to better their fitness and better their health. And I remember in my mind as a young woman thinking, wow, one is way better for me than the other. And that is just living on the side. And I mean nothing disparaging. In fact, I appreciate people who go into the field of counseling, but I just really loved interacting with people who were really helping themselves and bettering their lives. So maybe that's the easy route. Maybe I took the easy route, but I just realized that's what I really loved is those interactions. And I just kind of caught the bug then.
May is National Cities, Towns, and Villages Month, which means it's a great time to recognize the people doing the amazing work that keeps our communities running. The work most people rarely see, and if we're honest, hardly ever fully appreciate. It's the work that doesn't slow down, and yet it's the work that's expected to be done day in and day out. Right now, that work is getting a little bit easier. Across local government, teams are finding small but meaningful ways to operate more efficiently, not by replacing people, but by removing the kind of work that pulls them away from what matters most. Things like drafting routine responses, sorting through data, managing workflows that used to take far more time than they should. This is where AI is starting to make a real impact, and Tyler Technologies is helping local governments do exactly that with tools designed specifically for your world, practical, secure, and built to support your team without adding complexity. Tyler has put together a free ebook on AI and efficiency in local government, along with additional resources to help you explore what this could look like in your organization. Find them all at tylertech.com/winter to help you keep doing the work that matters most. That's tylertech.com/winter. Now, back to the conversation. I love what you've said here because, and I want to emphasize, I don't think it's the easy route. I think you're finding the path of least resistance. You're finding who you are and how you're wired. And I connect with what you're saying because, in fact, I did not take the path. I should have probably taken the path that you took, and instead, I went to seminary. I became a pastor, and I found out. Yeah, I had this overwhelming pressure because I grew up in an evangelical setting in the church, even though we were involved more for political, because you would have never known if you would have went to our house Monday through Saturday, you would have known we were Christian. Like we didn't, right. But man, we were there anytime the church doors were open. My parents were both in leadership. Because I was a musician growing up, I was on the stage all the time. And so it was kind of this pressure of, well, you got to use your gifts for ministry. And I loved people. And I went, and counseling almost killed me because I was so empathetic. I was like, and it came to the dawning when I was like 40. I was like, I had been a professional musician, an orchestral conductor, and then for the first decade of my life, and then I became a pastor because of that call. I just felt like, man, I was Jonah, I was running from the call. And so I did it. And yet I felt like this, I had this dawning moment where I felt like I care more for people than they care for themselves. And kind of like when you had that moment of like, I just need to be around people who are getting after it. And I said, I've got to have a change here. And this is what led me to city management and city managers is I go, I want to row with people. I want to be a support and a counsel, and I want to be able to give counsel and to give encouragement and leadership development. But I got to run with eagles, not sit with people. There's people who are wired, gifted to counsel and to have empathy and to have that slow empathy, and it's so needed. But if you don't have that, it is a horrible place for you to be because it'll burn you out, and it burnt me to a crisp, right? And so I think you had some real self-awareness to not give into the pressure of all the auxiliary, assumptions and expectations, to really at a young age find your path. And that's why I want to highlight this, is because if you're young and listening, the best thing you will ever do for your life is listen to the internal soul of who you are and how you're wired. Yes, it's good to have advice from others. It's good to have insights, but be careful that you don't choose a path that is not yours, that is someone else's. And so I'm just appreciative that you have shared, Kathy, because I'm sure that was a struggle, right? To figure that and then go, man, did I waste all this time, in this school and this degree, and now right? And yet you did, and now look at you. Now you've had this amazing career.
Well, I am really impressed with your career, and that's just really well said. And it's funny how we have kind of some similarity, except
Yeah.
we kind of took different paths.
And yet here we are. So let's go. So you're now in the story. You've done the schooling. You've kind of had some adjustments into where you are and what you're doing. You're working for the city of Lakewood now. When do you become? I know on the on kind of the resume that I found, you were a community resource director. How did you come into that position from opening the gym?
Yeah, I just kind of fell into it backwards. If I often tell young professionals, just don't say no to any opportunity. One time I was on the lifeguard stand. I was just a kid, and somebody called and said, "Oh my gosh, we don't have anyone to open the museum. Can anyone open the museum?" And they're looking, and I went, "Yeah, I'll do it. I don't know anything about the museum, and I don't think I have any dry clothes." So I patched together, some dry clothes, and I worked in the museum. The point is, if you just don't say no, you have no idea how many doors will open for you. So I said I was looking for a real job, and I just kind of fell in love with public service. So after I was managing the indoor pool, then somebody in the organization kind of created this special events program, and they said, "Here, Kathy, try that." So for about 7 years, I was able to create and implement special events for the city. No idea what I was doing, but really had fun with it. I learned some things. I'm just so glad we're all alive after some of that. I did a dog show, which I had no business doing, but and some things in our marina, et cetera. Really fun. So anyway, I did that for 7 years and just kind of, I think I just have courage. And so I just tried it and just built programs. During that time, if I may, I met somebody who I married, and we're still married, and we had 2 children, and we have 2 daughters. And the city taught me that they really care about the family. Family matters. So that fits beautifully with my values. So I was a special events coordinator for 7 years, and then I think I was actually pregnant with my second daughter, and there was a supervisor job to run the entire rec center. And the manager said, "Kathy, why don't you try for it?" And I'm like, "Well, I'm pregnant." And I applied for it and interviewed, and I got the job. So I got to run a rec center, and I learned a lot about fiscal management, about physical, how to run the building, and certainly personnel management. It was a really good experience for me, not having had those experiences. So then that was a supervisor job. So then I was promoted again to a recreation manager, and that we had 4 rec centers and 5 outdoor pools, and a myriad programs, from programs for the little teeny toddlers all the way up to our older adults. And it's so special what a city offers to the people that live there. It's just a matter of allowing that and to accepting those programs. Just really, it's really cool. I really appreciate the role of local government in the community. So I was recreation manager and got to do all those programs. And then I was promoted to community resources director. I think that's right. And that's the whole program. So that's about, at that point in time, it was about a $33 million department. We have a couple of golf courses, and we have historic village and cultural center, and about 100 public buildings, and about 120 parks, thousands of acres of open space. and probably some other things I'm forgetting. Oh, grant writing, that kind of stuff. So I got to do that. So I was a community resources director for about 9 or 10 years. And it was during that time I thought, I better go get a master's degree because I don't exactly know what I'm doing in terms of like from the education perspective. So I got a master's degree in public administration. Soon after I got that degree, the mayor said, Kathy, we really want you to go to the Kennedy School at Harvard. And we really want you to get your certificate in senior executive leadership. And I was like, okay. So I come home, talk to my husband, because that meant 3 weeks, a little over 3 weeks of burden of him working full time and taking care of 2 little kids. They were little then, maybe 10 and 7 or something. And then that matters, having somebody who is willing to share, even take the brunt of the weight at some point. So I did that. And that was a class of 64 people from all over the world. Fascinating people. Most were males, male gender. I think there were only about 11 females out of all those folks. And I learned, this is when I learned I wanted to be a city manager. We had a whole day where we had to do this negotiation. And they put us in a position where I was the negotiator and there were 2 other parties. And we had to go through a series of decisions that had to be made. And I think it took almost a whole day, maybe a little less than that. And so you only could have a winner and a loser. And I'm trying to remember exactly, it was something nautical, but I can't remember exactly what the issue was. So anyway, we come back to class and we were scored. We were scored by the people on either side of the negotiation. So we come back to, I hope I'm making sense. We come back to class and the professor put all of our scores on the board, and everybody's score was over here and mine was over here. And I felt like an idiot. And I thought I must have done something wrong. And the guys were all proud because, one of their parties won huge or whatever. And the professor came to me and said, you might want to think about incorporating this kind of skill in your life, because she said I was the only person that was able to come with a solution after a pretty intense negotiation where both parties walked away feeling they were able to not feel disrespected. So with their dignity or their integrity, even though one won and one didn't, when one lost. And she said, that's a special skill. And she said, you need to think about using that in your career. And that's when I went, oh, now I know the world needs more female city managers. And this isn't about man bashing, Seth, I swear. This is really about recognizing diversity of thought is really important at the leadership levels. It's so important. And disagreeing is so valuable because it makes your decisions smarter and it makes them better, as long as there's respect in those conversations. As long as people are respectful one to the other, it's so good to be different. And so to me, having females at the top level is a real added plus to have nice diversity at the leadership level. So,
okay, this is so good. I have a couple things I want to dive into. First is just this, in the story you just shared. Again, I think it reaches back to the beginning of your story of growing up and just being number 3. And when, yes, there are winners and there are losers, but if we can still feel seen, if we can still feel heard, if we can still, I talk about this with leaders. There's a couple of great books we've actually been through in our leadership development program that talk about that. The idea of, you don't want, the goal of mediation isn't to find the 50-50 solution. It's for people to feel heard, to feel seen, to feel validated, even if they don't win, even they still feel like, and I think that's part of the issue of even raising children, right? It's like each one, and maybe when you speak to why we need women in all kinds of leadership is, I think a mother looks at children differently than a man does. I think a mother has an easier time looking at each of those children uniquely, individually, and their worth and value, and not like on a men are very simple, right? It's like, well, what do you bring to the table? What do you, okay, well, you could go be the artist, whatever, and you're going to be the business person. And maybe then I spend more time with the business person because they have a more, whatever kind of, success looks easier to quantify or, it's tangible. Anyway, whatever it is, it's just like, I think that there's, in your story, there's the fairness, there's the being seen, having identity that speaks to probably, and here's what I want to ask. I want to go back to the rec center, because one of the things I think that leadership, one of the biggest lessons I learned in being a pastor is that, we had a church, I've been in churches of multiple sizes, but the largest one it was 15,000 people. So it was a very large church. Yeah. So 15,000, and think about the volunteers you need. Because again, I don't care if your church is 15,000, you never have enough money to do, right, of all the facilities and everything you have. You have to have volunteers, massive volunteers. And to have volunteers, you have to be compelling with a vision, with a mission, but you have to individually pull people in to be a part of that, to feel like their unique individual contributions matter. And I wonder if in local government, a city manager who's never had to really work with volunteers or with part-time, if you just come up in administration and are around people who get paid salaries, livable salaries to work, I just wonder if maybe that's part of the leadership hangup, is you've never really had to cast vision. Where I wonder if in your story, in a rec center, I would imagine there are volunteers and there are a lot of part-time people that have other distractions in life. And so to have to manage that, I'm sure taught you not only some uniqueness in leadership and in personnel, but in vision and in capturing that. Maybe speak to that and how, if you've even looked at that, because again, it's part of your story. I don't know if you even see it as unique, but I see those things as unique when you have to really drive with vision, but also again in your story of really bringing an individual in and helping them feel seen and valued and a part of something. Maybe speak to that in your journey.
Yeah, thank you. I'm happy to. So I think if you've been given the gift of being a supervisor, that's a huge responsibility, no matter what level. If you're responsible for personnel, no matter what level in the organization, you can really hurt people by being a bad supervisor. You can really deflate people by being a bad supervisor, or conversely, you can really help empower people and help them learn what their skills are. Because sometimes we're not very self-reflective and really know how we come across to the world. And if you're a good supervisor, you can help identify and really help people flourish in where their strengths are. So I see wherever you are in the organization, if you've been given this responsibility of supervision, you really need to covet that and be gentle with that. I know that from experience. I've had supervisors in the past who make you just feel like crap. And I remember always just making you feel like you just are worthless. And I remember thinking with this one particular person who was my supervisor, I thought, so either I can let her break me, or I can really, really listen to her so I can learn what I will never do in my career to somebody else, because I can feel that. I feel what that feels like. And it's just punishing, and it's traumatizing. And I remember thinking, Kathy, you're in a crossroads. Either you let it break you and you turn into a person like her, or you learn quickly, you learn what you never want to do to somebody else. So I think, I agree with you. People who have gone through the organization, first of all, they've got some kind of, when I became city manager, there was some natural kind of inherent loyalty, because we have about 900 full-time employees. They were like, oh, this is the one who actually cleaned toilets I did. And I had to clean icky things out of the swimming pool, and kids, icky things happen. So the thought was, we trust her because we know her all the way from the very beginning. And as a human supervising other humans, you realize how fallible you are and how imperfect people are. So it gives you I think as a parent too, it gives you a different art. So you're less of a perfectionist. I tell people, be a perfectionist only on yourself, never impose on anyone else. So I think that really speaks to what you're saying, experiencing an organization from a real humble and the real beginnings. It really helps you learn how perfectly imperfect people are. And it gives you a level of, what would you say, kind of under empathy or how hard life is for folks. And so be gentle on them. Does that make sense?
After more than 325 episodes with local government leaders and thousands of conversations on stages and workshops across North America, there is one pattern I keep seeing, regardless of the size, the structure, or even the budget of the organization. The people who are the most technically skilled are often the ones we are promoting into leadership. But then we expect those technical skills to translate. But let's be honest, leading people is a completely different job, a completely different reality. It's like learning a foreign language. When that gap isn't addressed, it shows up everywhere. In communication and accountability, in the very cultures we are trying to create, build, and sustain. And it shows up in the weight those new leaders now have to carry every day. That's exactly why I created the Municipal Leadership Development Circle, or for short, what we call the MLDC. It was built specifically for local government leaders who were promoted for their skills, but never fully prepared to lead people. If you are feeling that gap, or if you're seeing it on your team, in a department, now is the time to address it. Learn more and schedule a conversation at HaltingWinter.com/MLDC. That's HaltingWinter.com/MLDC, or simply use the link in the show notes. Now, back to the conversation. So much, so good. Okay, so you from lifeguard and you're just climbing the ranks, and I love that you point out saying yes to everything. That is probably the most common theme on this podcast now with over 325 episodes. The one thing, if you're young listening, or if you're not young, if wherever you're at in life, just say yes. Stop saying no. Stop getting in your head. And this is where this is going to tie in now perfect with the story, with your story. You become city manager, and in your story, I'm sure there was a lot of imposter syndrome moments. Like, well, I can't be the leader. I can't be the community resource director. I can't be the rec center director. I can't go to Harvard. I can't, right? I'm sure there were moments. And now that you become the city manager, that's crazy to think about. Tell us about how did that happen? How did you become the city manager? And what was imposter syndrome like even becoming that? But also when you finally get into the role, my goodness, the overwhelming reality of what all that meant. To walk us through it.
Well, I had no idea what I was doing when I got to be city manager, and I'll just admit that up front. No idea. After I went to Harvard, to the Kennedy School, I remember thinking, oh, the world needs more female city managers. I didn't know. I didn't realize that. So I talked to the current city manager and just said, if you could ever give me tips, I'd appreciate it. About 2 years later, he announced his retirement, and they did a national search, and he wanted me to put my name in. And I said, okay, I'll do it. Because sometimes you just do stuff that you have no idea what you're doing. So I put my name in, and like I said, it was a national search, and they got down to 6 final candidates. So I'm going to bring my story all the way back to when I was working out with my dad, and we are Assyrian. So there's a thing to that as it relates to women in leadership. And my dad and I worked out, we were walking to his car, and he said, well, Kath, I got to tell you, your mom and I talked, and we decided we want you to withdraw your name from the candidacy. And I was like, well, why? And he said, because people are really mean to city managers, and your mom and I decided we don't want you to do it. So go ahead and just withdraw. And I said, well, Dad, I'm full grown, and you don't get to tell me that. And I was nice, but I was like, I'm not going to do that. My other sisters would have, and so would my brother, but not me. And so I think out of defiance, I just went, you know what, I am going to do this, and I'm going to be okay, Dad. And so I did. And city council took a risk on me because a couple of the other candidates were successful city managers in other parts of our country. and city council took a risk on me. So I got the job, and then I fell into a learning curve that I just didn't know what was happening. At that point in time, one daughter was in college and the other one was at home. And I was so overwhelmed. I would come home and just kind of stare at a wall. And my husband thought he was losing me. And my daughter thought, what is wrong with her? It was really an adjustment for me. And I couldn't really get myself together. I remember one time scheduling 2 lunches in the same day. So I had a lunch at 11 and one at 12:30. I'm like, how dumb. And it took me a while to kind of build my cadence and to feel some confidence in what I could be and that I can learn. I also am really good at surrounding myself with really smart people who are really kind. And if it weren't for this group of professionals that were now used to be my peers, but were now reporting to me, the kindness and the generosity of their willingness to teach. So I had to sit down with the public works director as an example and start to understand land use issues. I had to sit down with our finance director and understand, back then it was like a $350 million budget. I had to sit down with the police chief and understand everything around policing. And it was from their generosity and my willing to say, I don't know. I need to understand. I need you to teach me. That I learned. And we're just such a tight team because I have deep appreciation for their willingness to share and to teach me. So just slowly but surely, I started to kind of fit in my shoes better. And I'd come home and I was starting to be more interactive back with the man I married and my daughter and my family. And that there was a time they thought, shoot, we're losing her. um, and it really takes a lot of support when I think back to how precious that was. So yeah, I didn't know what I was doing. And then, couple that with the fact that every 2 years you get another elected official who's your boss. So, and in my career, they range from way conservative, very, very Trump supporting people, right? A whole bunch of them. And I report to 11, a mayor and 10 council, which that's pretty large. I know. And they're always changing every 2 years. And right now they happen to be way left, very, very progressive, past liberal, way left. So you just have to adjust and support and neutralize your politics. I have zero politics because my job is to implement their policy as long as it's legal and ethical. So I was kind of going over the river and through the woods with that answer, but yeah. So you just have to be really nimble in this job and realize it's not about you. They don't care what I think about policy this or policy that. It's me making sure we are responding to how they want to see the future of the city. That's what this is about. It's really about negating your own interests.
You said two big things that I think are really important first, when you come into the city management role, in fact, this is one of the things I'm doing a lot of training on is in local government, we have people who are highly skilled. They come in and they become more and more skilled and they climb up inside of a department. And then all of a sudden they become a director or a city manager. And you've got to become almost a bigger generalist. And it's so tempting to get back into the weeds of what your skill set is, and you can't anymore. Like now you're at a different level of leadership, especially specifically of people leadership, which is radically different than project leadership. And for you, it just seems like the best. I resonate with it. It reminds me of a conversation with Zach Walker. He was the city manager in Independence, Missouri, and now he's in Bloomington, Minnesota. And he said he was a young city manager. Independence took a risk on him, and he said he hired 2 assistant city managers that were previous city managers and that were well tenured and came and really helped guide him in that. And again, leadership is about who you put around you. And one of the the things I can tell in being around a leader, I can tell pretty quickly the kind of leader they are. A leader that's not quite effective, that's going to struggle, is the person who has to be the smartest in the room. That has to be the most, skilled, the biggest resume. That is not the best leaders are those who put the more talented people around them. This is the story of, I always bring him up, Kevin Phelps. He just retired from Glendale, Arizona. And his story is and that's his thing. He's like, I'm the chief culture. I'm not the CEO. I'm the CCO. I'm the chief culture officer. And I just surround myself with the best people and let them run. And I make sure that we're all rowing in the same direction. And it seems like that's where, again, you've brought in this superpowered team and harnessed them to be awesome at their skills. And then giving them the leadership to really run. And like you say, it's the same thing with your electeds. You're not there. You're there as the chief administrative officer to go, this is how we implement your vision. But I think that's the tension, right? When you try to get in the way of, you're trying to implement your vision into their vision. And that's when chaos kind of happens in that political realm. And like you say, it's a very apolitical role. It's not you're the implementer of their vision. And you need to, again, make sure it's lawful, make sure that they're aware of the consequences of some of these decisions that you got to be thinking about the future, especially in local government where, with infrastructure and cost, you can do some poor planning or not address some needs that bite you big time in a few years. And so, yes, you have to be the professional there because, again, electeds really aren't professional. They don't really know what local government is or all the ins and outs. So they do. That's why I'm a huge proponent of city managers who really who do know, right? We need a professional to run professional cities. Give us an idea. Again, Lakewood, Colorado is kind of it's in Denver, right? It's the kind of.
We're adjacent to Denver. So we share a boundary. So if you think of Denver, we are due west toward the mountains of Denver. So we share we share a boundary. Lakewood's about population of about 156,000. So it's the fifth largest city in the state. Yeah. And like I said, we have a really big mayor and council. 11 people.
That is wild. 10 electeds. Talk about that's your majority time dealing with just them. How large was it? Give us the scope from when you started. What was the size of it, and what is the size now of Lakewood? Do you remember?
Oh, from a population perspective, you know what? Because of our juxtaposition in the metro area, we really haven't grown. I would say maybe we were 130,000. It just isn't significant. And I have no idea if I'm right, by the way. That was just a wild guess. But no, because we've got suburbs all around us. So what's really changed, really drastically changed, are the issues that we deal with on a daily basis. Back then, I had no idea how the future would look, and would never have guessed that I would spend so much time dealing with really hard issues around our unhoused population. I spent the whole morning with all the other mayors in our county and the county commissioners trying to tackle these really tough issues of homelessness. I mean, who knew 18 years ago? I had no idea those would be the kind of issues we'd be dealing with. And really to really put a pin on that, back then, like I grew up in Parks and Rec. So to be a parks guy was really a cool job because you cared a lot about botany and horticulture and all of that. And it was your pride and joy to beautify our parks. And they were always irritated at the rec people who their pride and joy is putting a bunch of people on their parks. But anyway, that's this natural tension. That's just a fact of life. But now these parks employees the issues they're dealing with on a daily basis are picking up human feces that are left on the park, and picking up dirty needles, right? And having to wear steel-toed equipment so they don't suffer harm. Having to deal with people who are living and camping in our parks, and that conflict with the other users. It's like very different. And I have such a a heart for these parks people who come back to work day after day because the issues are hard and it's hard to see people suffer right in front of you, and you don't get to just walk around them. You need to help solve, and I mean, it's just confront and solve. It's hard stuff, and who would have thought? Oh,
I wonder if the whole homeless reality across the nation is such a unique challenge because it is all encompassing of the human reality. There's a physical, there's actual shelter, but there's emotional there, and it's all over the place. There's drug addiction, there is mental health, there is like, it's not just one avenue. And I think that's what makes it difficult is when you try to go, well, we can solve this, but then it's like, but you didn't solve this and you didn't even touch this. And it's not just, it takes a patience, it takes an empathy, and you're also, a city can't solve it by themselves. They're trying to work with nonprofits, they're trying to work with, and so then it becomes there's just a lot of chefs in the kitchen with a lot of different ideas. And so I have a lot of empathy. I worked as a pastor. There's just a ton we tried to do with homelessness. And that's why I found this is a large problem, large because it's so vast in its scope. And how do you care for people? How do you actually have resources that make a difference? And it's a challenge.
And contrast that with what is the role of government and the public dollar. And I've had the really cool opportunity recently where we have 72 churches in the city, or 72 different pastors showed up to talk about this very issue. And since I made the distinct decision to have a career in the secular world, all of a sudden my heart just filled because I'm in this table with all these pastors, and I felt like, and that's a very personal thing. I'm not sure I should have said that, but I just felt like I was at home. And there was all different denominations, all different. And at the beginning, we're like, so, just because you might pray differently and you believe differently in baptism or whatever, we're all going to get along. We didn't need to say that. It was just a room filled with love and hope and compassion. It was just a really precious thing. That's very recently. And the whole idea is, how do we engage not only our nonprofit community, but also our faith-based community, into being a part of the community solution?
Well, I think this is why I found a natural transition into local government, and why I'm so passionate about local government is I don't know if to call it the tip of the spear, or at least the connector of all these things to say, this is what our community is, and this is what belonging is. I mean, that's what kind of the mission of the HaltingWinter podcast and project is. It's the place of belonging. Local government is the glue that holds the community together. And I think why it is because local government itself it's got so many departments that touch every component of community, from your streets to your water, to your emergency response, to your parks, et cetera. And then but local government can't do it by itself. It needs everyone to participate in that mission. And so when you get faith community, when you get nonprofits, when you get just residents who go, man, I want to care about the people that are around me, neighbors, right? Neighboring. And we've kind of lost the art of neighboring, it seems.
100%. Yes. Yeah, 100%. That's my least favorite thing about local government today is, for some reason, we went from really caring about our neighbors to demonizing our neighbors because we don't have the same political beliefs or don't have the same, for whatever reason, we've really demonized each other. And I just think that's so sad. And I think it's really troubling. And I think it's a national issue. So I don't know, that's just really troubling.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's the reality of just incivility. We live in an uncivilized, for how civilized we are very uncivilized. And there's multiple factors to that. There's social media and how easy it is just to, have an anonymous account and say whatever comes to your mind. It's the reality of what's happening at the national level, the federal level, which I think is so media driven now. It's like it needs attention. And so to be attention in an attention economy, you have to be dramatic. Like everything's a soap opera now, which again, we feed that, we tune into it. So we have a responsibility there too. And it all kind of flows. But the problem is it all flows down to local, right? Where people live. And that's my concern, is that local government does not get the recognition for the great work that it does, but it also has to bear then the weight of that incivility, because you're not going to go to Washington, D.C. and have a meeting with the president or a senator. Yeah. You can go down to City Hall anytime you want and give your piece, right? And so,
well, they do. We are that platform, and you have to really covet that and understand that that we are that place for them. You kind of just have to grit your teeth and grow bark so people can't hurt you, because they're angry. They're angry at something, and a lot of times it's not related to local government. So you just have to get really tough and, like a tree, grow bark so you're protecting your heart, I guess.
Absolutely. Well, your career it's just marked with so many awards. City Manager of the Year 2025 by the Colorado City and County Management Association, All-America City Awards 2011-2016, Hall of Fame Award 2025 by the National Civic League, and what put you on my radar is 2026 Champions of Public Service by the National Academy of Public Administration. They just came out with their Local Gov 250. And again, this is just... obviously you can't do it alone. It takes a team, it takes a village, as they say, but it also, you've done it. You have been significant. You have had incredible impact. And I would just, maybe for the audience now, especially as in your retirement coming up, what encouragement would you give to those who are still in the seat, who maybe go, man, the incivility, the politics and the frustrations? What encouragement would you give to them to stay? What has helped you persevere? Because I'm sure, especially coming out of COVID, like the last 6 years have been a challenge. And I'm sure, I think I did the math right, that when you became the city manager, I think it was around 2008. Am I right in that timing? 9. Yeah. Well, and for anyone who lived under a rock or maybe wasn't quite born yet, 2008, 2009 was the big housing, right, kind of collapse. And so I'm sure that wasn't the easiest time to come in to any kind of city management, right? There's some real, I'm sure, budget challenges, et cetera. So what do you think has helped you make sure that you are, not that you have 100% in the cup, but how do you make sure that you have something to give, that I talk about work-life balance. There's no such thing as balance. There's just intention. How do you make sure you're intentional with the things that matter? How do you do that personally, but how do you do that professionally in that unique role of city manager?
Yeah. I think personally, I just want to make sure that there's more to life than just the job. So I've mentioned my husband a few times, and believe me, monumental pain in the rear sometimes, but we're still married almost 40 years. And that matters. Finding peace at home, and with whatever that structure looks like, who or whatever that is, finding a place it's not going to be happy all the time, but just finding a place where there's peace. So when work is really ugly and uncivil, is that a word? Uncivil, just having that place where you're safe and there's peace. That to me, that just means the world to me. Really nurturing relationships outside of work. I've talked about my parents, who I love, and I've got all those siblings, even the young girl who's blonde and spoiled. She's one of my closest friends. I think you really need to pay attention to the life side of work-life balance, whatever that looks like. And if you're lucky enough to find love, then pay attention to that and nurture that and be good to people. So that the whole personal side really, really matters. And I encourage employees all the time, go figure that out. Go find a place where you have peace at home. You know why? Because at work, guess what I get? I get a balanced employee, a person who's it. You could be going through horrible crisis at home, but if you figure out a place where you're peaceful, we can help you. We'll help you. And sometimes your home life needs more than your work life, and you need to attend to that with illness or whatever. And sometimes your work needs more from you than your home, and you need to attend to that too. So to me, that's balance. And it's not 40 hours. It's not 40 hours here and this much. That's unrealistic. To me, the secret to finding joy at work is just appreciating the humans that are around you and their dedication to the employer and to their jobs and their pride in their work, and acknowledging that. A little bit of acknowledgement goes a long way, especially if it's sincere and authentic. So to me, that's the secret. It's just appreciating people and what they bring and how they contribute, and also having that grace for people who are struggling, because guess what? They are. Period. They are. That's just, everybody's got something going on. So and if they aren't on this moment, they will at some point. So it's just about having grace and caring about people. And yeah, so when you say, hi, how are you? You stay there. You stay in that moment and listen to what's the answer. Even if it's just for a moment, that makes people feel, like you had said, seen and heard and valued. And I believe all of us have three things. We all want to feel respected. We all want to feel important, no matter where we are in our lives. And we all want to feel relevant, like what we do matters. And I think when you look at the world that way, either in your personal life or in your professional life, it changes that dynamic. If somebody's mad at you and yelling at you, if you realize they need to feel like what they're saying matters, you don't have to agree, but just accepting that and having that bark where you don't own it, but you can hear it. And I just think, I don't know, I think that's a lot of rambling I'm doing, but I do think that's the secret to life. I really do. It's about caring for, understanding people want to feel respected. They want to feel important. They want to feel relevant, both in your personal life and in your professional life. It does amazing things when you frame relationships up that way.
So good. Amazing insights, and amazing just encouragement there. Yes. It's taking the time, it's intentionality, and it's not just intentionality in the big things. It's like that. When you say, hey, how many times you made me think, how many times do I see someone go, hey, how are you? And I'm already 5 feet past them by the time they say something. But to slow down and to take the intentional time to actually see people and to hear them and to respond. Wow, and how powerful is that?
Yeah, and it's simple. It's teeny. It's simple, but it's powerful.
So good. Oh, what a life. From lifeguard to the city manager of one of the largest cities in Colorado, all in one place. I mean, no longer to be called number 3. She is Kathy Hodgson, just amazing. I'm sure anyone listening today, especially if you are young, what a story of inspiration. But especially if you are a woman, there's no better story than yours to go, you can do it. I mean, goodness gracious, to have the change, to have the awareness, to be able to really choose your path that fits you, to be able to say yes, even when the imposter syndrome was significant, even when you were in the role of city manager in that first moment, to feel overwhelmed, and yet to persevere and to keep going and to believe and to just take a step, right? Sometimes that's all you can do, is just keep on stepping.
That's true. That's it.
What a blessing it has been to hear your story, Kathy. Thank you for sharing. And anything else?
Oh, we can talk forever. I just feel like our hearts are touching, and that's probably weird to say, but I just feel like we could talk forever. But yeah, it's been a really fun discussion with you.
Well, I'm glad you've shared your life, your leadership journey, and your insights. And I know that even though they're saying retirement, I'm sure you are still going to continue to be sought after and sought out for your insights and for your connectivity and just leadership. And so I'm excited to see how you spend the next chapter of life, encouraging and engaging, and hopefully you'll take time. Do you have grandkids yet? Are there grandkids? Do your kids have kids? No, not yet.
No, my daughter just got married almost 2 years ago. So every time she comes over, and we love this guy, he was dropped from heaven because I was sure there were only probably 2 people on the planet that could love her, and she found one. But anyway, don't tell her I said that. So every time she comes over, I always go, because I'm not that mom that nags, but I'm always like, would you like a glass of wine?
You got to see. That's right.
And so far, she has said yes. So we're not there yet. But one of these days, she's going to say no, and I'm going to know what's happening. So I think they're trying. They just bought a house with like 5 or 6 bedrooms. I'm like, what are you going to do with all this bedroom? So I think there's room for a couple of kids.
Well, yeah. that will be a fun new adventure on the journey as well. Oh, so good. Kathy, thanks for spending some time with us today on the HaltingWinter podcast. And again, look forward to seeing what the next chapter brings.
Thank you. Pleasure visiting with you.
The stories we share here on the HaltingWinter podcast remind us where government really lives, locally, right here in our cities, our counties, the communities that shape our everyday life. If today's conversation resonated with you, please subscribe and share the episode to help these stories reach others. I'm Seth Winterhalter. You can find me at HaltingWinter.com. Until next time, thanks for listening.